Shalom, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Oshai, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Oshai, Barak the Yahweh, and Barak the Oshai, like well praises to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, double honors apostles, elders, and bishops, great millstone, peace and salutations to a hopeful elect across planet Earth, pushing this truth in the spirit, and sincerity, and the truth. I just want to talk about, the sower and the seed parable, and how it's important to have a solid, strong, sure foundation, being rooted and built up, because there's a lot of things that will happen, a lot of things you will witness and see, on which this parable will break down, and it's important for you to have that sure foundation, that strong foundation in this word, in this truth, so that you can overcome and withstand these certain elements, and push this word unto the very end and endure unto the very end. But yeah, I just want to read it out of Mark 4 and 3. He doesn't mention seed in there, but if you read, I believe it's Matthew, 13th chapter, it talks about the sower and the seed, but it's the same, parable. This is Mark 4 and 3. Hearken, behold, there went out a sower to sow, and it came to pass, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the fowls of the air came and devoured it up. Some fell on stony ground, where it had not much earth, and immediately it sprang up, because it had no depth of the earth. Yeah, going into that, and no foundation. And when the sun was up, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. Some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no fruit. And other fell on good ground and did yield fruit that sprang up and increased, and brought forth some 30, some 60, some 100. You gotta skip down to the explanation. Mark 4 and 14, it says, the sower soweth the word. The sower is sowing the word, teaching the word, pushing the word, breaking down these scriptures. And these are they by the wayside, where the word is sown. But when they have heard, Satan cometh immediately and taketh away the word that was sown in their hearts. Yeah, and you've all seen that. Especially, the street corners, there's a guy that recently, that happened to me. Recently there was a guy that came up, he was talking, breaking down the word, and he was listening, and immediately, Satan came up, spirit hopped on this dude, and, trying to debunk the word, and, he just couldn't get it. He was all into, everyone could be saved, and, the Lord was dealing with all nations type of guy. He ended up leaving, the other guy left, and, that was that. But the point being, Satan came immediately, and that happens. A guy comes up, he's interested in the word, he hears it, but then, Satan comes, takes them away. And these are likewise, which are sown on stony ground, whom, when they have heard the word, immediately receive it with gladness, and have no root in themselves, and so endure but for a time afterward, when the affliction or persecution ariseth for the word's sake, immediately they are offended. Yeah, affliction, persecution, that's heavy. Persecution is coming, man, on a wide scale. They're gonna persecute, the Israelites, man. But even in your everyday life, they get offended. They didn't have no root in the truth. The family left them, or the woman left them, or maybe they lost a job. Affliction came, they got sick, or maybe they were threatened on the street. That affliction and persecution arise, and they were offended, and they left the word. And these are they which are sown among thorns, such as hear the word, and the cares of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, and the lusts of other things entered in, choked the word, and it becometh unfruitful. Yeah, they don't grow because they get caught up in the cares of this life, or they start teaching, doctrines that are contrary to the scriptures, for money's sake. They develop a big audience, or they take heed to what the people want, to what the black woman wants to hear those smooth things. But let me get that Colossians. So Colossians 2:6, as ye have therefore received Yahushai, the Lord, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith. Be established in the faith, rooted and built up in Yahweh Yahushai, man. Because it is a battle out there. It's a war, you know. As ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving, man. Yeah, rooted and built up and established in the faith, because it is a war. It's like we read, and have no root in themselves, so they endure for a time, and afterward, when affliction and persecution ariseth, for the word's sake, immediately they were offended. I told you that in Ecclesiasticus. Sirach, yeah, this is Ecclesiasticus, the Apocrypha, 2:1. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. Set thy heart aright, and constantly endure, and make not haste in the time of trouble. And the people that this parable is referring to in this verse is the ones that didn't endure, man. That temptation hit, you know, and in the time of trouble, they made haste. In the time of trouble, they made haste, you know. Uh, yeah, they were offended. Time of trouble came, affliction arose, persecution rose up, or whatever they were dealing with, whatever hell that they were going through. They were offended, and they made haste. It says, cleave unto him, and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. And whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. Yeah, you got to take cheerfully what is brought upon you, whatever it is that you have to deal with, the affliction, the persecution, you know. So those are they that are not rooted in themselves. They're not rooted and built up in Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. They're not established in the faith. They have no foundation in the word. So they'll make haste, in the time of trouble. Back in Colossians 2:8, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, and after the rudiments of the world, and not after Yahweh Shai, man. Yeah, the vain philosophy, vain deceit, rudiments of this world's tradition of men. That's what this thorns, man. They get caught up in the deceitfulness of riches, the cares of this world, man. The lusts of the other things entering in choke the word, man. They choke the word. They start pushing, going off on the word, and going off on the doctrine for that filthy lucre's sake. It's Titus 1:9, holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught. That's how you, stay established, rooted, and built up in Yahweh Shai, is holding fast of what you were taught. The faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine, both to extort and convince the gainsayers. There are many ruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially of the circumcision. Ruly, vain talkers. They become that, or they get caught up in that, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for filthy lucre's sakes. That's the gain, you know, that money, that worldly gain, that money, That's that thorns that they get caught up in, man. You seeing that with these other camps. You're seeing that with these false prophets out here, man. They want those views, they want that bag. So they teach things that they are not to comfort those, so they can, you know, get paid. The rebellious children, 2/3 of our people, man. Christians, they want to hear that, those smooth things, as Isaiah 30 and 9, that this is a rebellious house, rebellious people. Shall start at 8, Isaiah 30 and 8. Now go, write it before them in a table and note it in a book, that it may be for the time to come forever and ever. Yeah, even in this time, man. Nothing's new under the sun, man. We're in the time of the axe all over again, man. History, nothing new under the sun. Same rebellious people, man. Yeah, because everything's reincarnated. Same spirits back then or back here today. That this is a rebellious people, lying children, children that will not hear the law of the Lord, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things, but speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceits. Yeah, that's what Titus was talking about, man. And people get caught up in that because there's money, on prophesying deceits. There's money, just teaching smooth things, Everybody can be saved, and you don't have to keep the law and all this, Yeah, for there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things that they ought not, for filthy lucre's sake. Yeah, that word, man, it's that thorns that come up and choke these guys. They choke the word, the vain deceits. They prophesying this is for that worldly gain. They become unfruitful. They don't grow, and they don't grow. But back in Colossians 2 and 8, beware, lest any man spoil through vain philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Yahweh Shai, man. That word rudiment, online etymology, it means an element or first principle of science or art. Early training, experience, beginning, first principle. First principle, yeah. What's the element of this world, The elements of this world, the first principle of this world is to get rich. You want to get rich. Especially every time Jake makes a song, a rap song, it's always talking about getting money. Get rich or die trying, So that's the rudiments of this world. That the first principle of this world, man. That's what, our people get caught up in, especially they have the circumcision, they get caught up in thorns, man. Get caught up in the riches of this world, thorns, Yeah, actually. Rudiments of this world.
Strong's G 4747, stoichion.
Yeah, stoichion. Same thing, the Greek word going into the element, the principle. Any first thing from which the others belonging to some series or composite whole take their rise. An element, the first principle. Yeah, the first thing, the first principle of this world is getting rich. It's not our time to be rich. But there's nothing wrong with money is a defense. If you have a job, nothing wrong with having a job. There's nothing wrong going out there and making money. There's nothing wrong with having a roof over your head or a car. You know, but you know, just having that love. For those money. So we said, for the love of money is the root of all things. Plus, when convenient for me, the Lord's going to give you what's convenient for you. You know. Yeah, back in Mark 4:20, and these are they which are sown on good ground, such as hear the word, receive it, and bring forth fruit. Some 30-fold, some 60, and some 100. Ones that push the word, man. We're going back to Ecclesiasticus 2 and 4. Yeah, 4. Yeah, the ones that are sown, the seeds that are sown on the good ground, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully. They're going to take cheerfully, and they're going to be patient, when thou art changed to a low estate. You're going to be patient in the word, For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. Yeah, so it's going to be acceptable of those men, that are sown on good ground, man. They have that foundation, and they endure, right? How they believe in Him, and He will help thee. Order thy way right, and trust in Him. And ye that fear the Lord, wait for His mercy, and go not aside, lest ye fall. Yeah, wait for His mercy, man. Pray for mercy, wait for mercy, but ultimately fear, the Lord. Fear and knowledge. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge, man. And a lot of them guys that get caught up, don't fear the Lord. Caught up in the thorns, or they get caught up in the afflictions, and they're immediately offended. They don't fear Yahweh Shem Yahushai. They haven't grown to the level to understand that Yahweh Shem Yahushai controls everything. They control it. Yahweh Shai brought that affliction on you, that temptation, that test. So they run fruitful. They haven't grown in this word. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that out. Being rooted and built up, in Him, so that you can endure, all things. Ultimately, you endure unto the very end. But with that, Shalom.